one of the things that is interesting to me, I had a conversation with my wife the other day, and she stepped out for just a minute. The songs, I don't know about y'all, but the songs that, just looking around the room here, I can say this, the songs that the young folks do frequently, they have verses that they will just repeat over and over and over and over. And she had something on that was playing, and it had one of those songs, and it was over and over and over the same phrase. And I remarked about that and said, I because the songs I'm used to and are here, they keep moving, but you've got a chorus, but then you don't play the chorus over and over. You play it once, and then you go to the next verse, and then you come back and do the chorus, and so on. And she sat there and listened to me quietly and respectfully, and then said, well, the other side of that coin is that there's going to be the elders that sit at the foot of the throne, and they're constantly saying, and you look in Revelation where it talks about the elders are going to sit at the foot of the throne of God and sing, holy, 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 all the time. And I thought, okay, different perspective. But the reason I'm telling you this is because it's important as we draw to a close. We'll have today and one more week for us to realize that in reaching out and being missional to people in our community, everyone is going to have a different perspective than we have. One of the things that I used for a resource for this class is studies by a company called the Barna Group. And the Barna Group does all kinds of research and provide resource and research materials to churches. And one of their studies that I read recently, they talk about reaching out, the things that we're talking about in this class, reaching out to people who are unchurched, and that's whether they may have had a relationship with a church or been brought up in a church, but they don't go anymore, or people who have never gone to church. And to be able to reach out to folks around us in our neighborhood that are our neighbors and give them an opportunity to come and serve with us, because many of them, as we've discussed before, are interested in doing something to contribute to their community and to serve. And we do so many things at Northside. Jack couldn't even begin to talk about all of the things that are going on that we do here, both locally and across the entire city and in other countries, and the work that we support in this congregation. And so to be able to take the story of Jesus to those folks and say, here's something that can make a difference in your life. And those are the kind of things. And what Barna said was, we typically want to go when we're trying to do that, to reach out to someone. And it's kind of like trying to get a Cowboys fan to convince them that they need to become a Houston fan instead. Now that's a poor analogy, but do you think you're going to do it? No, not by telling them anything. And what Barna said was, people, and this shouldn't come as a surprise to us, people want to be listened to. And we talked about that in the very beginning of this class, in the first few weeks. And I know you didn't get it. You weren't here at that time. And so I'm going to recap just a little bit. At least there's one person in the room that can benefit from that. And that is, if you recall, we looked at the scriptures that Jesus interacted with people when he would work a miracle in their lives. And even the one that Tom used, I don't remember if it was Jack or Tom now, about the rich young ruler. I guess that was Tom that brought that up. What he did was ask the guy, the young man, he asked him some questions. He didn't immediately tell him what he needed to do. He asked him. He said, what does the law say? What are the commandments? And the young man recited them all back to him and said, I've done all of these things. And then the conversation moved to the next level. Well, if you recall, that's what Jesus did in virtually every interaction that he had with people, that he was going to do something miraculous in their life, and in one form or another, and he would ask them, what do you want me to do for you? And so he was ready to listen first, even though we know that Jesus already knew the answers. He knew what they were going to say before they ever said it. We don't have the benefit of that, but what we do have is the benefit of his example and his illustration of saying, let's go listen to people and have a conversation with them. And that's the most important thing, and that's where we get to this perspective that I was talking about with the songs. We've got to realize that everyone has a different perspective than we have. We all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different ways of looking at life and at the world based on our own life experience. And so those are going to be important things as we start to go out. And we're going to look at several things today that will help us in having that thought process, will help us to look at what we're going to come up with and see what we can do to be aware of these perspectives in other people. I passed out 2 sheets that are on your tables, and I'd like for everybody to be able to have one. One is a listing of the things that we've done the last 2 Sundays. The first one is a listing of all of the various things that y'all came up with in this class that we could do to put on an event where we're hosting an event, and we're trying to become a community center that's known in this community for being very open and welcoming and providing services here in our building and on our campus that serve the needs of the people around us in this community. And those needs go from, everything you can imagine. And in looking at the first list there with 17 items on them, this is the things that this class came up with 2 weeks ago on how to put on an event and the kinds of things and tasks and action steps that would need to be accomplished. The next one is the one that we talked about last week, the Adopt a School initiative. And that is the action steps that we would need to follow or execute in order to begin to support an elementary school. And I want to share with you, we are going to start doing that fairly soon with the school that is right down, I have to look at the direction, out that way, and then down Encino Rio, the street that's immediately north of us, our building, and about 1.5 miles down that street is Encino Park Elementary School. Being in the neighborhood of Encino Park, which is immediately behind us across the drainage ravine, is the most logical place for us to start. By going into that school and supporting the teachers first, and then as that grows and we find other ways to do it, we will begin to do things to support the children as well. But there are about 70, I think that's what we found out. There are about 70, was that about right? Wasn't it about 70 staff members, teachers and staff? It was an estimate, but it's close. Close enough for right now. We'll be finding out. Glenda has volunteered to begin to lead that and to start working in that ministry to organize it and to begin to do some things. We're going to start at a very, very small level. It's going to be very, very easy and very simple. But this list of tasks here, and I have these sheets on the table, and I hope that you take those with you, because I'm going to then ask you to look at those things and see what else could you be doing yourself. I assume that because you're coming to this class, you're interested in how to become more missional. That was the whole title of the class. And so I would encourage you to take these sheets with you, and in the next few weeks, pray about them and pray about what you're doing and what involvement you could have and what contribution you could make and where you could find a place of service. The next sheet is the one we want to work on today, and that is the one that has all the lines on it, on the front and the back. And what we want to look at is the next 3 events or types of things that we could do. When you look at the Touch a Truck and the Market Day and the Food Truck Festival, these were things that we talked about several weeks ago and doing our possibility thinking sessions, where we came up with a short list of higher priority items. And if you recall, we had like 20-something different items we could do to reach out and serve the needs of people in this community. We prioritized that and brought it back down to about 3 or 4. The elementary Adopt a School is one. And then these were the next 3, and that is the Touch a Truck, the Market Day, and the Food Truck Festival. All of these, and you might say, well, where is that being missional to do these things? And that's where we get to looking at what is Northside's place in this community. And I want to spend just a minute about that, because I've had people ask me the question about that. How is this being missional? How is this doing what Jesus would do? Well, you remember when Jesus started his ministry, he began by trying to be very quiet. He would heal people, he would cast out demons, he would do things, and he would then tell the people, go show yourself to the priest, but don't tell anybody else. Or he would just say, okay, go your way and don't sin anymore, but don't tell anybody what I've done. How many of us think, I'd like a show of hands, that when someone has worked a miracle in someone's life, that they're not going to go tell anybody? I don't see any hands for a reason. He knew exactly what he was doing. You know, that's the reverse psychology in spades. And when we look at how do we become known in this community as a place that serves and loves and is a home for people where they can come and be served and serve and be loved and have a family. And those are qualities, when you look around the world around us, we know that, excuse me, we know that there are a lot of people and a lot of families that are having crises from one level to another. Some are extreme and some are minor, and they're just kind of going on. But people recognize that there ought to be something better in my life. Or there's something that I could be doing, and I feel an emptiness because I want to be able to contribute or give back, and I don't know how to do that. Well, all of the things that we do will show people in our community that we do those kind of things. This is a place where people can be connected and can have those needs met, either needs that they have for themselves or needs to serve others in some way. And that's where the Touch a Truck, for example, we do it in collaboration with the children's ministry, and it would get promoted as bring your kids over and do that. And it's a recreational thing. The kids have a great time. And most parents are looking for, with young children, are looking for something that they could do with their kids on a Saturday to entertain them and have a good time and to do things together as a family. And Touch a Truck fulfills that need. And so we're fulfilling a need. Might seem kind of odd to some. We're fulfilling a need that families have and providing a service for them and making it aware and making it available in the community. The Market Day is the same kind of thing. Not only are we serving the needs of the people who are doing crafts and various things that they want to sell and set up a booth, but we're providing an opportunity for people in the community and making that known that they can come to this place and have a fun time going out and shopping for all kind of trinkets and crafts and arts and things, and meet other people on a Saturday morning and have a good time. Another point of making life better and doing something for people that makes life better. The Food Truck Festival is a similar kind of thing, and what we've talked about, and several people suggested, is we try and do those together. Well, if you look at, and that would be great, we could have the food truck thing by itself at some point, possibly. And that would obviously be something we'd look at, doing all of these on a fairly regular basis. Maybe the touch a truck once a quarter and the market day once a month. There is a church over the northwest side of town that does it once a month in their parking lot. And it's apparently attended by a lot of people in the neighborhood. And they enjoy having it, having the opportunity to do it, and being able to do that. And the other is the food trucks. Those things sometimes can be every week. Every weekend. Not likely we would do that here, but it could work out to be that at some point. So we've got to be flexible about how we think about that and approach it. So what we want to do today is to look at and come up with some action items, and there's 4 categories. The one is what would be the action items and the tasks that we would need to do that would work for any of these 3 things: the touch a truck, the market day, or the food truck festival. The other is what would be specific things that would only apply to the touch a truck program. And then the other one, the next 2 are the market day, specific things just for a market day, and specific things just for a food truck festival. Well, if you recall, when we did, if you look at this list that I passed out on that other sheet of paper, when we did the event planning for what we talked about as the initial event we talked about for the first time was the Bexar County Sheriff's Office coming in and using our building as a venue to put on an active shooter response training course. Well, when we got to looking at the list, if you look at that list of 17 items, there was only one on there that would only apply to that specific course, and that was simply being the communication and interface with the Sheriff's Department to coordinate that. Everything else on that list would be action steps that need to be accomplished in order to put on any kind of an event where we're hosting an event for an outside organization, or we're putting on an event that we're doing internally. For instance, another one was suggested through our safety ministry, and that was the CPR and Stop the Bleed course that we could put on. Well, that would be one that we would do it ourselves, with instructors that are here at Northside. And so, but all of those action steps need to be accomplished to do that as well. There are a few others for that particular thing, and there would be for other types of things, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at here. What is the master list of things that we would need to do that would be common to all 3 of these events? And so I'll stop talking and let y'all start talking. And I'll put some up on the board. What's one thing we have to do to put one of these events on? Pay people to work it. You got people to work at it. Recruit volunteers. Correct? Yeah. I'm going to give you a fun little thing. When I'm writing on the board, I don't always watch my spelling, and I get longer words like volunteers. I'll get lost in the middle. And so I had to step back and look at it to make sure. It reminded me that there is a typo on that sheet that you're looking at. And so I'm not going to tell you where it is. And I saw it this morning after I'd already printed 30 copies of that. And I thought, I'm not going to go back up and boot the computer up and fix one typo and then reprint all 30 pages. I thought we could have some fun with it. So if you spot it, you can let me know. What else? What's something else that would need to be done for any of these 3? I'm going to say coordinate the calendar. How does that sound? And let me mention that all 3 of these will probably, and I appreciate you saying that because it brings up another issue. All 3 of these type of events will be things that will need to be planned out months in advance. They don't just happen next week or next month. We'll need to be looking at, doing the planning and getting everything together and working on this. I think, Glenda, wasn't the food truck thing you said, and looking at that they have to schedule things and they promote them and plan them to have these events where the food trucks come in several months out in advance. So the calendar is the very first thing. You're right. What else can we look at?
Maybe I'm being stupid, but what is Touch a Truck? Define the event. Make it where it's something, I mean, if you put out Touch a
We
Truck,
talked about that a long time ago.
I
And I think you weren't here that day. So I am happy to fill you in. And for anybody else that may not have gotten that as well, because I know there's a couple other people I see here that probably weren't. In our neighborhood over in Stone Oak, I drove by a Lutheran church that's on Stone Oak Parkway one day, and I saw a crane sticking up in the air, and I thought, well, are they going to start doing some construction? And then I drove up and I saw a fire truck, and I thought, what is going on? And then as I got closer, I saw that the FBI had its assault vehicle out there, a black or a dark green Humvee with special equipment all over it. And then there was a semi-tractor rig. And so Touch a Truck is where you bring in all kinds of different, they had bulldozers and heavy equipment, construction equipment, the crane. Obviously the crane they stuck way up in the air on purpose because people could see it for a long ways around, which is real important for us to get the visibility from the road. And so they had a food truck there where they were doing refreshments and everything and selling those at a nominal cost. And the sign out in front, and there were people lined up and down the street on both sides, bringing their children to that. And when I got closer, I could see kids were climbing all in and around all those vehicles and on them. And the owners and the operators, the companies or organizations that brought them were, just helping them to be sure they didn't fall and get hurt. And they said they were doing a thing where they said the admission was $2 for adults and kids are free, and the proceeds go to their preschool, which we happen to have here. And so that's the kind of event. Well, as we began to research that, there's a lady in Arizona that actually trademarked Touch-A-Truck, the name. And so we've got to talk to her before we put something on just to make sure we don't get into a trademark or copyright infringement type thing. But it turned out that there are organizations all over the world that do it. I ran across several websites in Australia that do that, very popular, and especially with the kids, where it's another thing that they can get involved in and families can do on a weekend. Hope that helps. Does anybody have any questions about Market Day and what we're talking about there? Or the other one, the food truck festival is kind of the same. Mary?
For the Touch a Truck, will we provide transportation to the event? What about the parking of the people who come to the event?
Yeah, and parking is going to be in the general over here, because we're going to have to have signage, right?
A liability needs to be signed for everyone who comes into the event. And how will we serve special needs?
Sorry? Yes, promotion. Here's one of the things that's interesting about all of these. Because we're a nonprofit as a church, there is a high probability that we'd be able to go to local businesses, and this is part of that promotion and advertising, and put a poster or a flyer out about this and put it by the cash register or tape it up right inside the door on their window, and be able to publicize the event through businesses all around this area, and do it at no charge.
And then possibly call the radio station Kayla.
Well, actually, as a public service announcement, every radio station is required by the FCC to provide free public service announcements. And so
That's the only one that I listen to.
I understand. But the folks that we're trying to get to come listen to all kinds of stations. That's a place to start, Mary. Thank you. More.
And then internally, how many chaperones will be needed and the hours of the event?
I'm going to put hours up here with calendar, because that's going to be part of it. Guides. It's hard to see on this board. Well, actually, my handwriting's hard to read. Huh?
Post for it, just except for that, where we can have it, whatever event we have a table that says, this is what we have coming up in the next few months, you also might enjoy. And by the way, if you're interested in coming to church here, here's the hours.
Yes. That's going to be a given for anything we do. Everything we do, we talked about this. And when we have events that are hosted, for instance, the Child Protective Services, if we host a meeting for the 41 investigative caseworkers for them, we would want to set a table up. We would want to have some people here that are going to host that meeting and guide people in and maybe make some signage. These are things that we talked about, and some of those are on that list that I handed out earlier that applied to the other event that we would do. And so those are all things. In fact, a lot of the things on that list would go on this list as well when we're organizing something. Other ideas. We had Touch a Truck, and then the other one was, what's this big one up here? We're going to need, I suggested, I think, or someone did last week, we have a prayer, a person who's going to commit to praying for this event, but also encouraging everyone else who's working on it and everyone else who might consider working on it to also join them in praying for the event, and that it is a success, and that we meet lots of new people and lots of our neighbors in this area for the first time. The other one is, I get to go on and forget my list, wherever it went. The market day and the food truck. What are some things that we would need to do for these two?
Making sure there's running water for the truck.
Obviously, we're looking at a lot of these that are going to apply to any of the other three. That was the whole point of the master list. Yes, sir.
I think in terms of the market day, you need to find out if there's a need for a permit, especially if you're selling produce. You know, with food trucks, they have their own permits.
Right.
That would, I don't think we
Yeah.
issue. Market day, I don't know. Somebody we need to find that out.
That's a good point. I know we've had to do things with the kitchen here and the way we handle the food in the kitchen when we make it for loaves and fishes, because the Bexar County Health Department can come in, since we're packaging up food, we're making sandwiches, and we're bagging all that, and then we're giving it out to the general public, people that are part of the members of the general public. We've got regulations that we've got to follow in order to do that.
And there may be regulations about selling anything.
Yeah, that's true.
And so the liability form would go for both because they're consuming. And so if they're on our premises, are we liable for the consumption? And the answer would be no. And then trash receptacles, are we going to be for them or for us?
I'm going to start making a second list over here under the master. But you see how this works? When you start thinking about what do we have to do this? You realize the same thing would be something that we need to do for anything that we do, or everything that we do. And then clean up after, right, Mary?
And will there be things that they cannot sell? Is there going to be a limitation of things that they cannot sell?
That's a real good one.
They can sell it off site, but we don't. We want the Holy Spirit to show up, not
Yes.
echo.
Yes. We don't want anybody asking, why in the world would this church be supporting that vendor to sell that kind of stuff? Something that's offensive. You could also say that about political, You'd have to be careful about that too.
You want to limit it to no political.
Huh?
You want to limit it to no political.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you.
No.
That's kind of a rhetorical question.
Sure. But these are the kind of things that we've got to think through and come up with to make sure that when we're doing something and we're putting an event on, we've got to go through this process. And that's what's so valuable about y'all's contribution, is being able to have all these brains in here coming up with these things that will help us develop and put together the book that will guide us, because all of this is being saved, and we're going to, after this class is over next week, then I'm going to spend some time putting all of this together and compiling it, and it'll be a resource for Northside, not just for us, but for any other ministry that's going to put things, want to do some kind of an event or do something similar to this.
One of the things that kind of is popping up makes it Mary, is that your name? I don't know everybody or anybody.
The lady with the blue
Yeah.
on her head is Mary.
One of the things that she and I keep popping up with is, you need someone with a lawyer brain.
Oh, I'm not an Esquire, no sir.
No, I did that, because I wouldn't figure that out. But someone with a lawyer brain. I've been accused of it too, and I'm not. Because there's a lot of these little things that lawyers are trained to kind of figure out. I don't know if there's a lawyer that's a member of the church or a law student, but someone that just says, okay, bang, 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 these are the things where you're going to get tripped up. Very good. Very good. So I'm real good at taking pot shots at stuff, but I still don't have that whole liability lawyer thing.
There were some people we know that lady had surgery recently, and she had some surgery on her neck, and they found out after the fact that the thing that was installed there was different from what they had signed off on. And they were having all this conversation back and forth via text messaging, and their sister, who is a lawyer, said fairly quickly, if you ever consider that you might have to get involved in litigation, you need to stop texting about this. And I thought, yeah, that's the lawyer brain. Yeah, that's right. Nothing goes away if it goes across the internet. So what else are we going to, what other kind of things would we have to do over here? For these three, there's one big one that nobody's touched on yet. Pardon? Okay, so what comes before that? You're right, thank you. You're heading in the right direction.
Who provides the tables, booths, or whatever that vendors would be using?
Well, on the market day, obviously the food truck brings their own. The market day folks would do the same thing. Our indication would be they would bring their own shade structures and tables and all that. So they're responsible for that. But there's something else that we've got to do before we can even coordinate with the vendors or the people that would bring heavy equipment and trucks or the food trucks.
Do we have the correct space for them to be?
Pardon?
The correct space on our land for them to be?
Location planning. Yes, but we're still not there. What else? How are we going to find the people to bring trucks or come for market day or food trucks?
Logistics.
Yes, sir? How are we going to find these folks?
We can ask the congregation.
Okay. We're going to have to build a list of potential prospects, right? And then somebody's going to need to contact them and say, hey, we're going to do this. Won't you come? Well, that too, yes. That I would say coordinate with vendors is going to cover a bunch of those kind of things. But the first thing we got to do is we got to get the list of vendors, right? Who are the potential vendors that might be willing to come? Who are the potential folks with cool trucks or equipment that we might get to come? Who are the food truck operators that we might get to come? We've got to go find them. Is that fair?
Then you have to go and taste test all the food to make sure we can.
This is so fun.
Put out a statement that says we're not responsible for the food. Well, you need a person, obviously you need a coordinating person, you know, and somebody who hopefully would be with the food truck thing, somebody who maybe has their own food truck.
Yeah.
Because there's probably a food truck owners organization.
There is on Facebook, you can go out there and search on food truck organizations, and it'll come up with a whole list of, I've been out there, and it's like 4,000 members in that.
Wow.
And there's, at St. Philip's, we have different food trucks come on different days. And I know one of them personally. And so I guess my question should be is, are we going to limit whoever leads this or one of these? Is it going to be a barrier or boundary of that they have to be a member of Northside?
To do what?
To lead?
No.
Okay, then I'll reach, and I just wanted to make sure that I didn't.
See, to me, Mary, that's part of what we're doing in offering people opportunities to serve and do something. That to me, that goes to like the Loaves and Fishes ministry. Like Judy said, more than half of the people that come and serve in Loaves and Fishes aren't members of Northside.
But they're helpers, they're not leaders. Within
That's correct.
So I just want to make sure that I don't overstep a bound if I reach out to someone who's not a member of Northside nor a member of the church.
Okay.
So I know someone who has a food truck who's very successful, who could give us the ins and outs of that, but I just want to, before I reach out.
Well, and I think using them as a resource first probably would be a bit safer than actually having them say, would you lead this and do this for us? That fair? That seem? Yes, ma'am.
So this is kind of out of the box. Would the nursery be open? Maybe have some workers for moms, dads who like bring their kids who are old enough to be on the truck, but they have a baby and they can't, do whatever. Would the nursery be open for a parent like that?
For, I'm not sure for whom.
Say if I had 6 kids and only 3 of them could physically go and play on the truck.
You need the other 3.
You need the nursery for the other 3 because they aren't old.
Great question.
So childcare provided.
Pardon?
I said, so it would be childcare provided.
Yes.
I don't know where this falls in there, but I Wednesday night or a Friday night thing where they would have a food truck come out. And the church had to guarantee that so much money would be spent. And if it wasn't, then the church had to make up the difference.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes we had enough people came that it took care of it, and sometimes we didn't have enough people.
Glenda found that with the research she did on it as well, and that was one of the things she brought up, was that we've got to be aware of that we would need to have enough folks come, and then we'd have to have the conversation with them about it.
The
You know.
trusts have to sign off that what they get is what they get.
That's right. That's right. Because we don't have funds in our budget. I know I don't in local outreach to be able to say, okay, yeah, we can write you a check for $3,000 if it's short.
I was just surprised when I found that out.
Yeah, I was too. One of the things that when she brought that up, she and I got to talking about it, and I realized that's where that doing this kind of thing and this kind of thing for a while before we would, I mean, it may be necessary if we run into that we would need to have a regular, consistent group of people that are attending our event in order to be able to say, look, here's our history, we've documented, here's how many people we have come on this, for this event and this event, and you know, we'd love to have you come, but it's at your own risk as far as what do you do it.
Every food truck I've ever eaten from has been good, but they ain't cheap.
Well, I think if you look at let's start with the Tetra truck, which is, I view that as not really expensive.
Right.
I mean, it's a more public service kind of thing.
Yes.
You bring in a couple of food trucks and see how they do. And then those food trucks will probably pass the information on to other food trucks.
Yeah.
And say, now we want to kind of expand this. You know, these two food trucks, make all kinds of money. Come on out, let's see what we can do.
Right.
Whole mess up.
Yeah.
Whole mess up.
Broader range of food offerings, yes, menu types. And really, when you think about it, this is kind of what we see everything being in that we do. We start small. It's the same thing with the Adopt a School. We start small. We do what we can do right now, what fits within our budget, and we gradually, and with the number of people we've got involved, as right here at Northside, Mary.
Just on the side of the word transportation, I was thinking of if we offer transportation to the truck or treat event, if we pick people up at one place and bring them here, that's the transportation I was thinking of.
I understood you to say that. I would think that most folks are, if they've got kids, they've got a car, and they would be able to bring them, but not necessarily, huh? Pardon?
They got a bus pass.
Okay. All right. Important information.
Back to that school stuff, you may think it's an affluent school, but there's kids coming from.
Yes, other parts of town. That's right. Let me get y'all to look at this sheet that's down at the end of your table. There's one on each table. And I'm going to ask that you take a look at that. If there is something that you would like to volunteer for on all of these things that we've been talking about, there's one right over there. I would ask that you put down your name and email, and if there's any particular thing you're interested in doing, sign up and leave that on the table, and I'll pick that up, and we will be in touch with you to go forward on it and begin to put together a group of folks that are ready to start working on some of these projects. Any other questions or thoughts before we close? Yes.
Do you think, would it be possible, like with the touch and truck or whatever, that we could coordinate with our own preschool, that they might want to be involved in it? Since
Yes.
they've got 80, that's a start there.
First place to go doing free promotion right there in a captive audience. Yes. And of course, the other thing would be the children's ministry itself and to be able to say, hey, tell your friends and neighbors, and have a handout or something made that they could just walk their block and give it out to all of the neighbors that they know have small children that would be interested.
With, in coordination with maybe, I don't know what it's, like their PTA or whatever,
Right.
Meet the teachers, that maybe that would be a small way of starting out, that the kids could do touch a truck or whatever, while the parents could be meeting the teacher and,
Okay. One of the things that is part of the vision of the local outreach ministry is that we coordinate with all of the other ministries here for events like that. For instance, we do in local outreach, we do advertising on Facebook and Instagram for the trunk or treat that Children's Ministry puts on in October. The other thing is we did a similar thing for Easter, where we even actually did additional advertising through Google for where we had people could respond to the ad and click on a link. It would take them to a page where they could put in their email, and they could then get a download back of an activity kit, an Easter activity kit for their kids, and print it out, and you had coloring and little things to make and fold the paper up and all sorts of things like that in this activity kit. So one of the things is the foundation, in fact, is to work with all of the other ministries at Northside to the maximum extent possible. So yes, thank you. Mary?
How will we also gather the demographic information for the people coming to these events? Would they write it out? We're gonna have iPads, and we'll put the information down so that at the next event we can just send out a mass email alert or send it out to their home. How are we gonna gather that information?
That's a great question. Some kind of guest registry that we build a database of people that are interested in these kinds of things. That's where having the table that Glenda mentioned, the host table, where we say, here's the other events that are coming at Northside, come check out these. And by the way, if you put your name down, in your email address, we'll send out notices only when we have something coming up. And obviously for any email address like that, you can always unsubscribe if you don't want to get it anymore. I saw Robert come and go. Oh, there you are. Would you lead us in a closing prayer, please? Thank you.